Uju Indenoi Magnadok, Anin, Kage Gabo Indigenikas, Mekanak Indudem, Mekanak Wajibwing and Dunjaba, Yakabakang and Danongom. And what I said there was, hello all of my relatives. My name is Kage Gabo, I'm Turtle Clan. I'm a descendant of Turtle Mountain. I live in Minneapolis today, and Apijigo Miigwech Bisandawyig. Thank you so much for listening to this live Ojibwe Word of the Day. Apijigo Niminwain Dan and Nishinabe Moyan. I love to speak our Ojibwe language, and I always consider it a blessing and a privilege to have a chance to talk about our language, our culture, our spirituality, our ethics, our philosophy, and to have a chance to do it in such a cool new way by using Facebook Live to do these live Word of the Days. So, Apijigo Miigwech Bisandawyig. And you've probably noticed that from this week we had Wapigoni Gishigan. That was Memorial Day. That's literally Flower Day. That's one of the words that the Anishinaabe used to describe Memorial Day. Another one was Mikwayne Jige Gishigan. They remember day. And then the next day was Wingushk, which is one of these 4 sacred medicines that Anishinaabe use. So Wingushk is sweetgrass, and yesterday was Bushkode Jibik. And I don't know if you saw this in the comments, but there are actually a number of different names for sage. So one was Bushkode Jibik. Another one that I've used and have learned was Mushkode Washk, which is another word for sage. And then another elder shared with us that she uses the word Mushkode Jibik. And all of those seem to have this idea of either plains grass or plains root. Jibik is a root. And that's it's an incredibly sacred medicine that we use to purify ourselves, to purify our environment. And we do that with the Wingushk as well, with the sweetgrass. And so tonight's word of the day, I thought we'll do all 4 of the sacred medicines this week. And this is one of maybe the most important medicines that we use. They're all important, but this is one that ever since I began learning Ojibwe, I've been learning about and elders have spoken to me about, and that's Asemaa. That's our Ojibwe word for tobacco. And I'd like to, kind of preface tonight's word of the day with American Indian Anishinaabe use of tobacco is definitely pre-contact, but it's incredibly ancient. It's incredibly old. And Anishinaabe have been praying with tobacco before Jesus gave the Sermon on the Mount, before the Buddha began preaching, before Socrates lectured and talked about his ancient philosophy in Athens and in Greece. Probably, and I think it's very safe to say, before the pyramids were built, Anishinaabe have used tobacco to give thanks and to pray with. So with something so old and so ancient, you'll never be able to explain all of the facets and all of the incredibly diverse uses spiritually and culturally of tobacco in like a 10-minute talk. That just won't happen. So when I was thinking about, how would I speak about tobacco, I thought, well, I'll talk about it the way I learned about it first. And that was from a story and a paper that my first Ojibwe teacher, Guayako Gabo, Rick Greshig, and Mukwe Widamukweban, that's the late Jesse Clark, wrote in one of their books. And I think, that's called an Ojibwe Anishinaabe Wakin Gidayaman. We're an Ojibwe country. And this was part of a unit I took when I was an Ojibwe student at the University of Minnesota, the Gabegakin Daso Wigamigong, with Pebama Benes, with Dennis Jones, speaking about his unit on Asemaa. And the story we read was called Asemaa Ａᓭᒫ Anishinaabe Odapajian. And a human being, an Anishinaabe person, always uses tobacco. And right away they start off by saying, Asemaa gi pakitanawan, Oma king Anishinaabe jina apajiat. Asemaa was put on the earth for the human being to use. For the human being. Well, the next one is Asemaa gi apatisiwan, Ojibwe Anishinaabe. Asemaa is used for Anishinaabe to give thanks. And that's such an important word, and that's such an important concept when we're talking about using tobacco. I think we can get a really good understanding of why tobacco is used if we look at when it's used. And when it's used is to give thanks. And if we're talking about Miigwechwe Tagozi, that's really to express gratitude. It's to, and by speaking, and you're speaking with the tobacco, and you're giving thanks, you're expressing gratitude. You're not bartering, you're not exchanging, you're being aware of what you're doing at that very moment, the moment you're addressing the universe, all four of the directions, Wabanong, Shawanong, Ningabianong, Inorashkiwetanong, Gokomisanan, our grandmother, the Manaduk, as well as Kije Manadu, the kind spirit. And so if we look at when tobacco is used, it's really a lifetime affair. It's from the cradle to grave. For example, before you might receive your Indian name, your parents would probably give someone who had that right and that gift to give someone an Indian name tobacco, Asemaa. They would give them tobacco and ask, would you give our child a name? So right away when you're a baby, you're already using tobacco. And then tobacco will be used throughout your life. For example, before you're going to Jibwa Atsoked Anishinaabe Asemaa. Before the Anishinaabe person tells a sacred story, they use tobacco. So before you ask someone to tell a winter story, a sacred story, you would offer them tobacco and ask them, would you tell that story? Would you atsoke? Did that atsoke? No. Could you tell that story? So, and then I think our last live word of the day, we spoke about Animikika. There are an abundance of thunder beings, or Benesika. There are abundance of thunderbirds when we hear a thunderstorm. And then again, Anishinaabe is acknowledging them and expressing their gratitude for the work that they do in caring for the earth and for the help that they've given us spiritually through healing, through our Indian names, and through ceremony. We're acknowledging them with the Asemaa. And if we look at other times they use it, I'm looking at that story now. So before Anishinaabe took a big trip, before you were taking a road trip, you would begin with tobacco. You would take a moment. Again, you would acknowledge all of the directions, and you'd ask for help, and you'd ask for safety as you're about to travel, as you're about to journey, that the powers that be, that the spirits are looking after you, and that's how you're speaking to them, is through the tobacco. And you can either use the pipe with the tobacco, and I look after a pipe carrier, but I also just use tobacco that I'll set out. Binakamig on a clean area, and I'll often do that facing the east. So other times that they would use tobacco was if you're by water. So anytime you got into a canoe, you would offer tobacco. And this is something important because we know the Dakota phrase, Mini Wachoni, water gives life. I think you could say Nibi, Bamaji, Maguk, water that gives life, water that can make one live. So Anishinaabe always had a great respect for the water. And if it's something sacred, that means it can give life, but it can also take life. So you want to be very cautious when you're by the water, when you're in your chiman, in your canoe. And as you're setting the tobacco down, you have a sense of awareness of what's going on around you. And other times we would offer tobacco before you're gathering medicine. You have to speak to the plant. You have to tell the plant what you're going to do. And then you're going to give the spirit of that plant tobacco because you're harvesting it. And although the plant plant is going to give you life. So you're not exchanging. That's not a good trade at all for you to give tobacco in exchange for something's life. What you're doing is you're acknowledging that I who have absolutely nothing, I who am ill, am asking you for help. And all I can really give you is tobacco. And then you get an idea of Ojibwe Word, that plant unconditionally loves, pities, and blesses the human being and heals him or her. And they do that before you harvest wild rice, Asemaa. Before they knock the wild rice, before they harvest the wild rice, they set down tobacco. Before they tap the trees for maple sugar, they set down tobacco. And of course, when you're hunting and you're fishing, after you've harvested an animal, after you've had a successful hunt, you would offer tobacco and say to this beautiful oasi, or beneshi, or gigu, to this beautiful four-legged animal, to this bird, or to this fish, that you're giving me life. And I'm acknowledging that relationship that we have with the tobacco. And ultimately, you'll see that when maybe we make a spirit plate at a feast and we have tobacco, what we're doing is acknowledging all of the food that is at that point becoming mashkaki, strength of the earth. It's becoming medicine. It's going to give us life and sustenance. And we're acknowledging all of those spirits that went into making that plate. And to say, thank you for that. Thank you for giving us life. Thank you for taking care of us. Thank you for blessing us and loving us unconditionally. And ultimately, as I said, this is a cradle to grave affair when we leave the earth. That's when I've heard for when they die, when they go home. When they go home, tobacco accompanies the person who's going to the spirit world. They'll use tobacco at that ceremony. And at that point, I'll say, meet you akidoyan nongom. So that's all I'll say about this so far. There is so much to talk about when we begin acknowledging our spiritual ways and why we do particular things. Not that we're praying to these beings who are helping us, but we're acknowledging their great gift, and we're expressing gratitude for that, and how important that is in our life, how very important that is to us to lead a good life. And so, meet you wakidoyan nongo, apajigo miigwech. That's all I'm going to say tonight. Thank you so much for listening. And something else I'd like to acknowledge. It's my birthday today, and I've had so many birthday wishes, and I felt the extraordinary love, and I want to say apajigo miigwech. That's really touching, and I think it's very amazing, and I'm very grateful for that. So apajigo miigwech bizindawi. Again, feel free to share this video and to like it with anyone who may be interested in Ojibwe culture, Ojibwe philosophy, Ojibwe spirituality, and get a Anishinaabe monin on our Ojibwe language. Ahau, meet you, miigwech, Gigawabman.